why I'm talking about rain gardens. That's one of the extension topics for Master Gardeners. I work at a rain gardener at Willoughby Farm, which is run by the Collinsville Area Recreation District. And that's my experience with rain gardens. And then I also volunteer at the Watershed Nature Center in Edwardsville, where the Rotary has been so terribly generous to us. They're paying now for the landscaping of our building there, the kind of formal landscaping with native plants. It's really wonderful. It's a great honor to be asked to speak to the Rotary, and this was my first Rotary meeting. So they didn't have it in Nebraska where I grew up, in this little town. So anyway, I have a copy of my outline here with some information on it. I told Brad Levy that I brought an outline along, so you could just take one and pass it around. Now, does anyone have a rain garden at their home, or has anybody ever done a rain garden? Well, one of the reasons I thought maybe this topic was selected was that maybe the Rotary was going to do a rain garden as a public thing in East Alton, because I bet you have a lot of places where water collects or where water rushes down, or maybe the city has been building more retention basins and bigger storm drains and things with all the rain we've been having. Anyway, I wondered about this particular topic, and if I go on too long, just start getting up and leaving and so forth. Okay? Anyway, okay, all right, okay. Anyway, Sandra Mason, who is a gardener with the University of Illinois Extension, has really said something wonderful about rain gardens. She says, except for the occasional rain dance, we can't do much about where the rain falls, but we can do a great deal in determining where the rain goes. Have you ever looked out the window of a plane as it lands and noticed just how many hard surfaces you see? There are rooftops, driveways, streets, sidewalks, and massive parking lots. When we pave and roof, we take areas that used to be sieves, that used to be colanders for rainwater, and turn them into funnels. Just watch your downspouts, even with a light rain on your house. The water gushes out. We love not having to slop around in mud, but by creating all the hard surfaces, the paved world that we live in our urban areas here, we change the flow of rainwater. Rain gardens are one solution to turn areas back into sieves. And it's something that individuals can do in their home garden, or groups can do, for their community. So a lot of cities on the West Coast, the West Coast, they are requiring homeowners to divert part of the runoff of their roofs into a rain garden. So it's something. We've all kind of grown up. I think everybody in this room has kind of grown up, even the elders among us, I include myself, have grown up being more conscious of our impact on the environment. So this is something we can do as individuals to take care of the problem of the stormwater runoff. Well, why is stormwater runoff a problem? Because it causes, maybe you could see it around here. I don't know about the circumstances of East Alton, but I know more about Wood River and even parts of Edwardsville. We have flooding, we have erosion, we have stormwater floods that have to be fixed on a regular basis. And also, with the stormwater runoff comes lots of pollutants that go on and end up in the Mississippi River and then end up down in the Gulf, where not only do we have the oil spill, but we have a huge dead area that's caused by algae blooms from nitrogen running down into the river from Illinois, and then the algae comes on the top, and then it dies, and then you have a huge eutrophication dead area in the Caribbean. So we have a lot of problems with pollution. And not all in our little creeks. You can't eat anything caught in a local stream around here, the Cahokia Creek or any little stream. That's because of all the pollutants that we're sending into the system. We can also recharge our groundwater by building a rain garden. And rain gardens allow about 30% more water to infiltrate compared with turf. People say, well, I have grass, isn't that enough? No, grass, in a way, is kind of like a paved place. Grass, the water rolls right over it, especially turf grass. It has very shallow roots. It doesn't really hold the soil, and it doesn't hold back the pollutants. So when you fertilized and herbicided your lawn and the big rain comes, the herbicide is going to go right into our local streams and areas. Whereas if you have a rain garden to catch some of the heavy rain at least that's coming down and hold it for a while, then you're going to take those pollutants away from our own water system. And the solution, the rain garden, is really a reconstructed watershed. And I wanted to look back here. Let's see. Here's a picture. This is a picture. I hope if you can't see it, just walk up and look at it while I'm talking. That's all right with me. But you could. This is the rain garden I work on at the Willoughby Farm in Collinsville. It's just a work in progress. We've just started it. But it gets the runoff from a parking lot up here through a storm drain over here. So it's taking the runoff from the parking lot, and then it's got rocks and plants here that are filtering the rainwater and taking out the pollutants and holding it before it evaporates, or it runs over, holding it for a while before it runs over. If it's like really heavy rain, it runs over a little berm here and down into a stream. So you're catching and filtering rainwater with a rain garden, and you're using plants that are adapted to flooding. Now, native plants, we're talking about Illinois, which was the prairie state, and in which we have now destroyed 98% of our prairies. It used to be 99%, but we've had a lot of active prairie restoration going on in Illinois, even around here too. And so we're recreating the prairie. But this is turf grass. This is the root on turf grass. Our own native plants that were here in Illinois out for thousands of years before we were here have roots that are either 2 or 3 times as tall as they are. So when you have and lots of the levees are planted with native prairie grasses now because they hold the soil in the dirt levees that are built around Illinois, like switchgrass. There's cultivars now that are shorter, but they still have long roots. But the regular switchgrass. So prairie plants have these kind of roots, and when the water, and they're what we like to use in a rain garden. If you like other plants, other beautiful plants from other parts of the world, you could do a mixture in a rain garden. But it's very good to have native plants because they are the ones that really absorb the pollutants. Lots of times in brownfield areas, native plants and native grasses are planted to absorb the pollutants from the water there and take them away so they won't be there for future generations. And that's the role of native plants. And you can get many plant lists for a rain garden. I just didn't want to break the paper bank today. I felt I did it with the outline, but you can Google the Missouri Botanical Garden. How many people have ever been to the Kemper Center for Gardening at the Missouri Botanical Garden? It's really a fabulous building, and they have a beautiful rain garden there. And they have lists, and they have the list online. They have pictures of the rain garden online and lists. And then they have the Missouri Botanical Garden has a part that's about 40 miles west of St. Louis, out there at Gray's Summit. And this place also has a beautiful rain garden, and on their website, they have a list that's even bigger than the one from Missouri Botanical Garden. So I'm not going to read lists of flowers and things, since most of you are not gardeners, I can see today. Some of you are, but most of you aren't. So anyway, if you get interested in this, you say, hey, I'm tired of water in my basement. I think I'd like to try a rain garden. Okay. Now, I know that many people here are much better at construction than I am, but I want to talk about some aspects of the construction. But we see the goals. We're going to minimize flooding, maybe even of our own basement. We're going to direct the flow of rainwater from some surface, maybe a parking lot, maybe a roof. maybe just our own lawn, our own turf grass. We're going to redirect some of the water rolling over and flowing on into our streams. We're going to have erosion control on sloping areas. And we're going to reduce the silting. You know, we all know the silting problem of creeks and streams around here, especially. That's why they all want farmers, which they won't do because they want to plant right up to the fence row, but they like to have farmers. You see the good farmers have a bush, you know, up along their creeks that are by their fields. They have planted with shrubs and bushes and things like that. That's to keep, you know, that's to hold the soil, to minimize the erosion and so forth. Anyway, then we absorb the pollutants, and then we save tax dollars because we're not going to be building, if everyone would do this, or lots of people would do it, we might not have to be taxed to build new storm sewers or new retention basins all the time. And then finally, the rain gardens really do provide beautiful places. It's a beautiful showplace garden, and native plants, you don't have to fertilize them. You don't have to mow them. If you can clip them back, you can get smaller cultivars. If you don't want a big wild-looking garden, you know, you can do different things with them just as well. But they don't have anything but beneficial insects. No Japanese beetles, you know, or if any of you are gardeners. Anyway, they're really great. And then you have a habitat for local reptiles and birds. You have all kinds of birds coming and butterflies that come to the native plants. And they're, you know, native plants. We always think of birds eating the fruit, you know, we have little berry trees for birds and things like that, and people do this with honeysuckle, which is what I work on eradicating at the Nature Center. Honeysuckle berries are not really very nourishing for the birds, but they eat them because there's nothing else. Our native plants nourish birds with the good berries that they evolved with, and then native plants, when birds are nesting, they also, birds eat the larvae of different insects, and they eat scales and things. And each native plant attracts a certain amount of insects that provide biomass food for birds when they're nesting. You know, a lot of these exotic plants, I've never seen a bug on a honeysuckle that I worked on, and I've been working on them for about 5 years at the Nature Center now in Edwardsville because we're overrun with it. Or euonymus. You don't find any insects because there's nothing for birds in most of the plants that are not natives. There's a few they're called non-specialist insects. There's a few non-specialist insects that will go on to these exotic plants that didn't grow up here in Illinois, that aren't part of our real natural habitat, but very, very few. So when you plant a few native plants, even if you say, oh, I just love this hydrangea from China, well, good. You know, but maybe when something dies in your yard, plant a native plant. So that's part of it too. Anyway, now let's look at the construction aspect.